This is Nightline, and I'm Sabrina Zainal. News making the headlines. Johor polls, BN promises transit homes 500 ringgit cash aid to needy youths. And Petronas returns to the black with a net profit of more than 48 billion ringgit. Good morning. Barisan Nasional BN has announced its manifesto for the Johor state election, which includes creating more transit homes for eligible youths and 500 ringgit financial assistance to students from B40 families. Johor BN Chief Dato' Hasni Muhammad said the coalition sees Johor youths as the most important demographic.
Dato' Hasni said the Johor BN will implement 6 key initiatives within 5 years, where there is an annual financial assistance of 500 ringgit to all students from the B40 family. He said more transit homes will also be developed to eligible Johor youths with affordable rental prices in strategically located areas of the state. The initiatives, which include 5 main thrust areas, are economic development, people's welfare, youth, administrative integrity, and political reform implementation. Other initiatives promised include Bank Rakyat's 100 million ringgit interest-free loan and various annual financial assistance through Johor Niaga to small and medium enterprises under the Economic Development Initiative. Dato' Hasni claimed that within 5 years, BN will restore the economic might of Johor, which was once the highest contributor to Malaysia's overall investment.
Melalui 9 inisiatif di bawah Johor Berdaya Saing, ianya akan dapat memperkukuhkan kedudukan ekonomi negeri Johor. Kesemua 9 inisiatif tersebut bakal melonjakkan ekonomi negeri, antaranya dalam bentuk fasilitasi, pelaburan dan pembangunan sosioekonomi daerah mengikut kearifan serta potensi tempatan. Umum mengetahui bahawa perubahan perusahaan kecil dan sederhana PKS amat terkesan dengan pandemik COVID-19 ini. PKS Johor tidak terkecuali. Mereka memerlukan tujahan dana dan pelbagai sokongan untuk meneruskan perusahaan.
Dato' Hasni also added that through the People's Welfare Plan, 8 thrust areas have been promised, including the provision of annual financial assistance of 150 ringgit to each primary and secondary school student from families earning between 3,001 ringgit to 7,000 ringgit. He said the cost of childcare may be reduced with the expansion of nurseries owned by the Darul Taksim Family Development Foundation by offering affordable childcare fees to the people of Johor. Meanwhile, Dato' Hasni also vowed equal annual allocation of 200,000 ringgit for government and opposition state assemblymen through BN's political reform initiatives. He added that if BN manages to garner 2/3 of the majority, a redelineation may happen for state constituencies with large electorate. The EC has set March 12th as the polling date for the Johor state election and early voting on March 8th. Johor has 56 state constituencies with more than 2.59 million voters who are eligible to cast their ballot in this state election. The EC is targeting a 70% voter turnout.
The government does not protect any individual involved in corruption. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri Yaakob told the Dewan Rakyat individuals involved in corruption either from the government or the opposition will be brought to justice.
Jadi tidak boleh menganggap bahawa pihak kerajaan hari ini melindungi individu-individu tertentu dan mengambil tindakan terhadap orang tertentu hanya untuk memuaskan hati setengah pihak. Kita tidak tahu dulu sama ada dulu ada selective prosecution atau tidak. Tapi hari ini tidak ada pendakwaan terpilih kepada sesiapa sahaja. Itu janji kerajaan. Terima kasih.
The Prime Minister said this in reply to opposition leader Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim's supplementary question on the seriousness of the government leadership to state that the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission, MACC, should act without hesitation against anyone. Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri also said many ongoing court cases which involved elected representatives from both the government and the opposition proved that the government is serious in taking action against those involved in corruption.
A proposed date to reopen the borders has been agreed upon by the COVID-19 Quartet Ministers meeting and will be presented to the Prime Minister and the Cabinet. Speaking at an online media conference on Tuesday, Senior Defence Minister Datuk Sri Hishamuddin Tun Hussein said he would leave it to the Prime Minister to make an official announcement on the matter.
Datuk Sri Hishamuddin said any decision made will be done according to three principles, namely to ease and remove complications for travellers, to make a decision based on scientific data and facts, and lastly, to compare with other countries reopening their borders. However, for countries that have yet to reopen their borders, the government, he said, will continue using the vaccinated travel lane VTL method as what has been done with Singapore. He said that VTLs with Thailand and Brunei have been announced and will be implemented soon, adding that talks are also ongoing for VTLs with other countries.
But MOFA, Ministry Foreign Affairs, has been tasked with a list of other countries that we are exploring VTL. And I'm not in a position to announce as yet, but there are countries that we are looking at.
The government, he added, will continue monitoring the possible emergence of future COVID-19 variants and adjust rules accordingly. On the Omicron variant, Datuk Sri Hishamuddin said data reinforced the stance that Omicron was not as serious as previous variants. He said, based on a briefing by the Health Ministry, the country has seen a decoupling trend for the time being in ICU admissions and deaths due to COVID-19, which is 80% to 90% less when compared to August last year, despite there being more cases now. The ministry has said it will use the next 2 weeks to study trends and that any loosening of restrictions in the future will be made accordingly. He added that so far the Omicron variant would not lead to large-scale lockdowns.
The Bahasa Melayu and English language papers of 708 Sijil Pelajaran Malaysia 2021 candidates in Kelantan have been postponed as their schools were flooded. Senior Education Minister Datuk Dr. Radzi Jidin said the students were scheduled to sit for the two papers on March 2nd and on Thursday, but the tests have been postponed to April on a date yet to be decided.
The 7 affected schools in the Pasir Mas district are Sekolah Menengah Kebangsaan, SMK Rantau Panjang, SMK Gual Periuk, SMK Baroh Pial, Sekolah Menengah Agama Mahad Muhammadi Rantau Panjang, SMK Meranti, Sekolah Menengah Agama Al-Falah Siram, and SMU Khairiah Bangol Setul. Datuk Dr. Radzi said this at a media conference after visiting SMK Agama Lati in Rantau Panjang, Kelantan on Tuesday. He also urged SPM 2021 candidates in the state who are facing difficulties to go to their schools or be present at the examination centres to contact their class teacher, school examination secretary or principal. He also said SPM 2021 candidates affected by floods are allowed to be present at examination centres without wearing school uniforms.
Petroleum Nasional Berhad Petronas returned to the black with a net profit of 48.6 billion ringgit for the financial year ended December 31st, 2021 FY21 from 21 billion ringgit net loss a year earlier. Petronas also reported a 39% growth in revenue to 248 billion ringgit in FY21 compared to 178.74 billion in a year earlier.
The National Oil Company attributed the stellar performance of its bottom line and top line on surging commodity prices driven by the recovery in global energy demand as key economies reopened and travel restrictions eased amid higher COVID-19 vaccination rates around the world. President and Group Chief Executive Officer Datuk Tengku Muhammad Taufik said Petronas has benefited from the overall recovery of the oil and gas sector globally.
The strong performance we registered in 2021 demonstrates the dedication and the resilience and the strength of our workforce, combined with a robust integrated portfolio. This has taken us through 2 years of extreme disruptions to the energy ecosystem. As we progress to capitalize on this period, Petronas will continue its efforts to safely deliver commercial and operational excellence.
For the fourth quarter ended December 31st, 2021, Petronas recorded a profit after tax of 13.4 billion ringgit against losses of 1.1 billion in the quarter a year earlier, thanks to higher selling prices and lower impairment losses of assets. Despite the current surge in the global crude oil price, Datuk Tengku Taufik said Petronas expected Brent crude oil prices to average between $70 and $80 per barrel this year. Petronas paid a total of 25 billion ringgit dividend to the government in FY21 and spent about 30 billion ringgit capital expenditure.
Now, the government expects its tax revenue collection to return to pre-pandemic levels by meeting or surpassing the target of 139 billion ringgit this year. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri said that to support this goal, the Inland Revenue Board management needs to formulate short and mid-term strategies to achieve the target while maintaining its good performance in the future.
In his speech for the Inland Revenue Board's 26th Revenue Day celebration in Cyberjaya on Tuesday, which was read out by Finance Minister Datuk Seri Tengku Zafrul Abdul Aziz, Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri said this includes identifying new economic sectors and implementing the tax laws in a transparent, effective and efficient manner. Indirectly, he said the effort will increase the Malaysian family's trust and ensure that taxpayers fulfill their responsibilities.
Dengan sinar pemulihan yang lebih jelas tahun ini, kerajaan menjangkakan kutipan hasil akan kembali kepada paras sebelum pandemik COVID-19. Saya percaya dan yakin bahawa keluarga hasil akan berjaya mengulangi pencapaian tahun 2021 dan akan memenuhi atau melebihi sasaran kutipan cukai yang berjumlah 139 bilion ringgit bagi tahun ini.
For 2021, the Prime Minister said revenue collection jumped 17% year-on-year to more than 140 billion ringgit, while the country's gross domestic product grew by 3.1% compared with a 5.6% contraction in 2020.
Still to come, TNB considering legalizing Bitcoin mining. Stay with us for the details.
Johor, adding luster to Malaysia's most southern state. Having vast potential in attracting more investors. What can Johorians and the business community expect in the next 5 years? Up close with Johor Menteri Besar Datuk Hasni Mohamad this Saturday at 5 p.m. only on TV3.
Welcome back. In light of the rampant illegal Bitcoin mining operations and financial losses from illegal electricity tapping nationwide, Tenaga Nasional Berhad, TNB, is looking at ways to legalize mining operations by imposing special tariffs. Its chairman and chief executive officer, Datuk Baharin Din, said a proposal has been drawn up with special tariff rates for Bitcoin mining, and this has been forwarded to the Energy Commission for approval.
Datuk Baharin said they first discovered the electricity tapping for Bitcoin mining in 2018, when at a time there were only 610 cases. However, the numbers jumped to 3,090 premises being used last year, and the tapping was done haphazardly, with the illegal operations posing a huge risk to the premises as well as others in the vicinity through electricity sharing. He said, in addition, the electricity volume which the illegal miners have been tapping was also way too high and detrimental to everyone.
Aktiviti mencuri elektrik dalam Bitcoin ni, dia seperti mana kecurian elektrik yang lain, tetapi dia sangat memudaratkan compare dengan yang lain. Pertama, kerana kuantum volume yang dia curi itu sangatlah besar. Berterusan 24 jam, 365 hari setahun. The volume is high. Kedua, the technique of tampering ini quite sophisticated. Kalau you go beyond normal, kalau orang di rumah biasanya dia cuik meter ni. Ini dia go beyond that. So you have to be technically competent.
As such, he said TNB has made a proposal with recommendations to legalize Bitcoin mining by charging them a special commercial rate, but said the proposal is still being reviewed by the Energy Commission. Datuk Baharin was speaking to reporters after sharing the recent success of Op Power, a nationwide joint operation by the MACC, police, EC and TNB, which managed to cripple 998 illegal Bitcoin mining premises last month.
Meanwhile, the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission, MACC, on Tuesday announced its raid on a Bitcoin mining syndicate that has hundreds of dens spread across the peninsula. The raid, a joint operation with TNB called Op Power, shut down 20 of the 998 premises operated by the syndicate, with a total of 18 people arrested.
Dalam menjalankan operasi Bitcoin mining ini, mereka menggunakan tenaga elektrik yang cukup banyak. Jadi sepatutnya pihak-pihak pengusaha Bitcoin mining ini membayar harga elektrik tarif yang sebenar. Namun demikian, untuk mengaut keuntungan, mereka telah mencuri elektrik.
The raids were carried out in Perak, Selangor, Pahang, Kedah, Melaka, Johor and Pulau Pinang. Tan Sri Azam added that TNB losses from 2018 until last year are estimated to be 2.3 billion ringgit. He said authorities have also identified 23 suspects suspected of paying and accepting bribes to allow the premises to operate. He added that following the raids, assets worth more than 4.4 million ringgit from 126 bank accounts belonging to 97 people and 29 companies have been frozen. Enforcers also confiscated more than 281,000 ringgit in cash. In Melaka, 2 individuals, including a manager of an advertising company, were remanded for 6 days to assist in the investigation into a case of bribing Tenaga Nasional Berhad TNB officers for stealing electricity supply. The remand order on both suspects, aged 33 and 43, was issued by Magistrate Muhammad Izwan Muhammad Noh at the Ayer Keroh Magistrates Court on Tuesday.
According to MACC state spokesperson, the suspects, one who works as a company manager and the other unemployed, were arrested in 2 raids at their homes on Monday. The suspects were believed to have bribed TNB officers when the inspection was carried out and found that there was an illegal electrical wire connection in the premises involved. The connection of special equipment or electrical insulation were believed to reduce the monthly electricity bills. The electricity supply used at the premises was believed to be related to the activities of the illegal Bitcoin mining syndicate involving millions of ringgit. In Seremban Negeri Sembilan, 2 men were remanded for 6 days beginning Tuesday on suspicion of bribing a Tenaga Nasional Berhad TNB officer 75,000 ringgit since last year. The bribe was to protect the activities of stealing electricity supply from premises around Negeri Sembilan in order to carry out Bitcoin mining activities. The remand order against the 49 and 50-year-old suspects were issued by Assistant Registrar Mas Azmimin Ahmad at the Seremban Special Remand Court. It is understood that the two suspects offered and gave a total of 75,000 ringgit in bribes to TNB Southern Zone officers from August 2021 to January 2022. The investigation is being conducted under the MACC Act.
Sarawak police seized more than 25 kilograms of drugs worth 1.2 million ringgit in 3 separate raids across Kuching last Saturday. The police also arrested a suspected drug trafficker, a 27-year-old unemployed man, in the operation.
Acting Sarawak Police Commissioner Datuk Mancha Atta said the suspect, who tested negative for drugs and had no previous criminal record, was in remand for 7 days until March 5th. He said the suspect was arrested together with a certain amount of drugs at a 5-foot way of a restaurant in Jalan Penrissen. The arrest led the police to a courier company at Jalan Tun Ahmad Zaidi Adrus and a house in Kampung Bumbok.
Hasil pemeriksaan ke atas kotak tersebut ianya didapati mengandungi 13 bungkusan plastik putih dan hijau bertulis Taiguan Yin. Setiap satunya mengandungi 1 bungkus plastik. Lusinar berisi ketulan habla disakiti darah jenis ketamin.
In all, he said the police seized 12,258 grams of shabu worth 462,888 ringgit, which was packed in transparent sheets, and ketamine weighing 13,376 grams worth 735,680 ringgit, which was wrapped in food packages. The police believed the drugs were sent via courier service from Peninsular Malaysia. Also seized in the raids were a Toyota Wish and a Yamaha motorcycle.
Ukrainian president accuses Russia of war crimes after shelling in Kharkiv. The details after this short break. We're back with the foreign front. Russian strikes pounded the central square in Ukraine's second largest city and other civilian sites Tuesday in what the country's president condemned as a blatant campaign of terror by Moscow. Media reported that at least 6 people were killed when the region's Soviet-era administrative building in Kharkiv was hit. Explosions tore through residential areas and a maternity ward was moved to an underground shelter. The strike also blew out windows and walls of buildings that ring the massive central square, which was piled high with debris and dust. In a worrying development, Human Rights Watch said it documented a cluster bomb attack outside a hospital in Ukraine's east in recent days. Local residents also reported the use of the weapons in Kharkiv and the village of Kiyanka, though there was no independent confirmation. At the same time, it was reported that a 40-mile convoy of hundreds of Russian tanks and other vehicles advanced on the capital, Kiev, and what the West feared was a bid to topple Ukraine's government and install a Kremlin-friendly regime. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky, in the meantime, has described the bombardment of Kharkiv, which killed dozens of civilians, as a war crime. He also claimed that there were eyewitness accounts of civilians being deliberately targeted during Monday's attack on Ukraine's second-largest city.
Центральну площу – це відвертий, нічим не прикритий терор. Ніхто не пробачить, ніхто не забуде. Цей удар по Харкову є воєнним злочином. Це є державним тероризмом Російської Федерації. Після такого Росія – це держава-терорист. Очевидно, і має бути офіційно.
Zelensky's statement came as the International Criminal Court's chief prosecutor, Karim Khan, plans to open an investigation into the allegations of crimes arising from the fighting, as well as violations dating back to the initial Russian invasion in 2014. As for now, he has asked his team to start collecting evidence of abuses, such as attacks on civilians. On Sunday, more than 70 Ukrainian soldiers were killed after Russian artillery hit a military base in Ohtirka. Some local residents were also killed during the fighting. Meanwhile, Poland's Deputy Interior Minister, Mieszko Wysik, on Tuesday said around 350,000 people have entered Poland from Ukraine, and over the last 24 hours, 100,000 people have crossed the Polish-Ukrainian border. The village of Medyka in southeastern Poland is the main border crossing with Ukraine, where thousands of refugees have crossed the border by bus, car, and on foot. Those arriving were mostly women, children, and the elderly, after the Ukrainian president banned men of military age from 18 to 60 from leaving the country. Previously, over 1 million Ukrainians have settled in Poland since 2014, when Russia annexed Crimea.
In the meantime, 7 Malaysians who were in Ukraine have made it safely back to the country on Tuesday. They arrived in Poland after a journey via land to the border before flying back to Malaysia. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri Yaakob, who described the evacuation mission of Malaysians in Ukraine as a success, was at hand to welcome the group.
Jadi kita sangat bersyukur kerana walaupun kejadian berlaku di Ukraine agak membimbangkan, tetapi alhamdulillah seperti yang kita sebutkan, nyawa dan juga keselamatan rakyat kita menjadi keutamaan kepada kerajaan. Jadi sebab itulah kita melakukan usaha yang terbaik untuk memastikan rakyat kita di Ukraine selamat, dan alhamdulillah mereka selamat tiba.
The 7 were among 12 people, comprising 9 Malaysians, 2 dependents, and a Singaporean who were brought out of Ukraine on February 26th. However, 2 Malaysians had decided to remain in Poland. 13 Malaysians had left Ukraine between February 14th and 24th on the advice of the Malaysian embassy in Kiev. The Malaysian embassy in Ukraine has been temporarily closed.
FIFA says no to Russia. Sports coverage when we come back. Sports now. Russian teams were suspended from all international football, including qualifying matches for this year's World Cup, as Moscow was pushed toward pariah status in sports after its invasion of Ukraine. World football body FIFA and European authority UEFA banned Russian national and clubs teams from their competitions until further notice. Russia's men's national team had been scheduled to play in 2022 World Cup qualifying playoffs in just 3 weeks' time. UEFA also took the last remaining Russians in European club competitions this season, Spartak Moscow, out of the second-tier Europa League. Spartak's scheduled opponent on March 10th and 17th, RB Leipzig of Germany, will advance directly to the quarter-finals. Decisions by FIFA and UEFA can typically be challenged on appeal at the Court of Arbitration for Sports in Lausanne, Switzerland. In Bolivia, residents are joyful as the country's biggest folkloric celebration returns after last year's cancellation due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The folk dancers performed traditional morenada and diablada after months of preparation for the pulsating street festival that has revelers clad in colorful costumes and dazzling masks. Let's take a look as we wrap up Nightline this time around. I'm Sabrina Zainal. Thank you for watching and stay safe, Malaysia.